Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are translating the absolute latest structural models into a highly actionable blueprint for inclusive excellence. We're talking about a massive mindset shift here, moving special education away from being a physical place where students go and turning it into a seamless service they receive right where they are. We're going to unpack exactly how schools can purposefully build true educational equity right into their systemic DNA. So, let's take a quick look at our agenda. We'll start with the overarching paradigm shift, look at the engine of inclusion, examine the three-layer architecture, lay out a concrete district blueprint, and then wrap up by discussing how to make all of this a reality. Before we dive into the logistics and the district blueprints, I really want you to just sit with this powerful idea that drives this entire explainer. Special education is not a place. It's a service embedded in learning. You see, true inclusion requires purposeful system design, not just good intentions. A totally laissez-faire approach usually ends up failing our most vulnerable students. We literally have to purposefully build a framework to give them every possible opportunity to thrive. Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the paradigm shift, from deficit to design. This comparison brilliantly illustrates the root of the problem we're facing. If you look at the traditional model, when students struggle, what do? We remove them from the classroom so we can essentially try to fix them. But under the inclusive excellence model, we have this light bulb moment. The barrier isn't the learner. The barrier is the design. So when a student struggles, we redesign the environment itself. We stop trying to fix the student and start designing systems that actually work for all learners. It's a total game changer. Moving right along to Section 2, the engine of inclusion, uniting UDL and push-in services. First up, we have Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. Now, UDL is a proactive design framework that focuses on redesigning the curriculum itself. It's all about offering multiple means of representation, think visuals, text, and manipulatives, multiple means of action and expression, and multiple ways to actually engage students. Instead of creating one rigid lesson and then slapping a dozen modifications on it after the fact, UDL provides one incredibly flexible lesson that works for many learners right out of the gate. Second, we pair that UDL foundation with push-in service delivery. If UDL redesigns the curriculum, push-in redesigns the support structure. So instead of sending a child away to a resource room, the specialists, like your special ed teachers or speech-language pathologists, enter the general education classroom to provide real-time scaffolding. This is absolutely vital because it keeps students in the least restrictive environment. They get access to grade-level content, all while promoting peer interaction and a true, genuine sense of belonging. Now, here's the crucial takeaway. These two concepts cannot survive without each other. If you attempt push-in without the flexible foundation of UDL, the classroom just becomes total chaos. On the flip side, UDL without the dedicated hands-on support of push-in professionals, well, that just remains a nice educational theory on paper. Together, they become a seamless, fully integrated system. Let's be totally real for a second and call out the fake version of inclusion. We've all seen weak push-in, right? It's unstructured, there's no co-planning, and the special education teacher is essentially relegated to sitting in the back of the room, just whispering help to a few kids. True push-in mastery operates entirely differently. It is highly structured. Lessons are co-planned, instructional rules are crystal clear, and the classroom feels like a dynamic team teaching lab, not a solo act. All right, Section 3, the three-layer architecture, designing MTSS classrooms. This seamless continuum of support really happens in three distinct layers. Layer 1 is your Tier 1 foundation, UDL-designed core instruction, where 80 to 90% of students succeed simply because the differentiation is already built in. Then, Layer 2 is your Tier 2 support, push-in co-teaching. This is where general and special education teachers operate as a unified team to provide strategic in-class interventions. Finally, we have Layer 3, which is Tier 3 precision, targeted pull-out. Because let's be honest, pure inclusion isn't always enough for things like intensive phonics or behavioral regulation. As you can see, the most effective systems find that instructional sweet spot by balancing these two approaches. Push-in provides the context, the real-world application, the social learning, and that crucial grade-level access. Pull-out, on the other hand, provides precision, skill isolation, and foundational repair. The real magic happens in a blended model. You teach specific skills in isolation through pull-out, and then you purposefully apply those exact skills in context through push-in. That is how true learning transfer happens. Let's move to Section 4, the District Blueprint, a multi-year transformation roadmap. Look, transforming an entire school system requires a phased strategy. You can't do this overnight. You spend the first 6 months simply building the foundation and getting the system ready. Year 1 is dedicated to piloting and prototyping. Years 2 and 3 focus heavily on strategic scaling. And year 3 and beyond, that's where you finally institutionalize the model so it just becomes the way we do school. Let's break these phases down a bit more. So in phase 1, you build the foundation. And honestly, clarity beats inspiration here. You must conduct our reality audit, look hard at the data to find out what your inclusion currently looks like. Are students actually in the least restrictive environment? You also need to build a cross-functional leadership team and define your absolute instructional non-negotiables. If you don't explicitly define what UDL and push-in look like in your district, every school is just going to invent its own weak version. For phase 2, start small and go deep. Select 2 to 4 pilot schools that already have strong principal leadership. And listen, here is the absolute hidden lever that makes or breaks this entire phase. You have to redesign the master schedule to align special education staff with core instruction blocks and fiercely protect weekly co-planning time. Without that schedule alignment, your push-in model will collapse before it even gets off the ground. Provide intensive professional learning and build model lab classrooms to serve as real-world proof points. As we scale strategically in phase 3, we expand gradually based on documented pilot success. You've got to standardize systems like common co-planning protocols and shared UDL templates to maintain quality control across the district. You also need to align your teacher and principal evaluation metrics to this model. And very importantly, you must proactively communicate this massive shift to families. Parents need to understand exactly why their children aren't being pulled out as often and what this new inclusion model actually looks like to build that necessary trust. Finally, we hit phase 4, where you lock in the transformation. You institutionalize the model by ensuring your hiring practices actively select for a collaborative mindset. You build UDL training right into day 1 of your new teacher induction programs, rather than treating it as an optional add-on. Furthermore, you ensure that any new curriculum adoptions only feature flexible materials that support this inclusion-first philosophy, all while maintaining ongoing data cycles to continually refine your system. Bringing us to our final section, Section 5, Making Inclusion Real, Navigating the Reality Check. It's time for some real talk about where these district initiatives quietly fall apart. These are the make or break factors. If leaders don't protect that co-planning time, your brilliant push-in model instantly collapses into glorified tutoring. If principal leadership is weak, classrooms will simply revert to isolation. If there is a lack of role clarity, your highly trained special education teachers will just be treated like classroom assistants. And if you over-rely on pull-out, true inclusion never actually happens. But you'll know your system is working when you start seeing these observable outcomes. The classroom feels like a busy, structured teaching lab. General education and special education teachers are visibly co-leading. Students are actively engaging with multiple ways to understand and express the content. Pull-out is targeted and highly precise. When the support is almost invisible because it is seamlessly everywhere, that's when you will see the achievement gap actually begin to close in a truly meaningful way. I want to leave you with this quote because it perfectly summarizes our entire journey today. UDL designs the stage, push-in delivers the support. Together, they make inclusion real. It's all about architecture and action working in perfect harmony so that absolutely no student feels the stigma of being separated and everyone feels like they truly belong. So as you look at your own district's master schedules, your curriculum, and your underlying philosophy, I leave you with this final thought to spark your next steps. How will you shift your school from fixing students to purposefully designing systems where every learner belongs? Take these frameworks, assess your current realities, and start building your blueprint. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep designing for excellence.